Welcome to the Equine Vet Connect podcast. I'm your host, Dan Carter. I'm a veterinarian and a farrier. The goal of this podcast is to educate horse people, break things down, bust myths, and keep it real. Speaking of breaking things down, here's my legal disclaimer to keep my attorney and insurance company happy. While I am a vet, I may not be your vet. Contact them before trying anything you hear on this podcast. Remember, just because you watched it on YouTube or heard it on a podcast does not mean you can do it. Please use common sense. Welcome back to the Equine Vet Connect podcast here at Countryside Equine Hospital. We're in the old studio again this morning, treatment room 1. Got Dr. Zoe Latimer with me today. She's one of our vets here, and great topic today. It's interesting. One of the things, people start sniffling, they start sneezing. Spring is in the air. If you're here in Georgia, we have an amazing pollen season, and also when spring's in the air, people start thinking about riding again.
That is true.
So today we're gonna be talking about, you've had a horse that maybe is either coming back from an injury or had the winter off. You're getting ready for show season again. You're getting ready to run some barrels. You're getting ready for rodeos, or you're just ready to just go play on your horse because the weather's nice. Maybe
you just bought a new horse.
Maybe you got a new horse. So we're going to talk about what you need to do to get that horse in shape to decrease the risk of injuries, and what we need to do to get that horse in shape so you can enjoy the season.
We're going to talk about the couch to 5K, if you will.
I like that.
Yeah.
Couch to 5K. 60 pounds ago, I used to be a runner, but not so much anymore.
I used to run when I actually was at home in the daylight.
Yes. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. It's kind of stress relieving, and it was great. And
I loved it.
Yeah. Now, unless something's chasing me, I don't really run anymore.
I like being able to turn my brain off. It was very monotonous. I liked that.
The rhythm. Doom, 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 doom.
I'd actually run without music because I liked that noise.
100%. 100%. That was me.
You'll have to forgive me. I'm very stuffy this morning. The pollen has gotten me.
I mean, it's going to happen. For those of you that have never been to Georgia during the springtime, pollen is real down here. We actually see it blowing through the air. It looks like waves and dust storms, and you'll see haze in the sky, and it's like, nope, that's just pollen. And
I was down in Macon yesterday, and it was coming across the fields and sheets yesterday. So
that when you so we're here in middle Georgia, and when you fall off into South Georgia, pollen season takes on a whole nother. They're about 2-3 weeks ahead of us, and it is intense. So
yeah,
I think that's next week's episode, what to do with allergies due to pollen, because
I've seen so many respiratory cases in the last 2 to 3 weeks. It's not even funny.
It's pretty intense. So, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what it takes to get your athlete back to performing.
We're going to pretend like you have a horse that's had the last couple months off, just resting.
Right.
So we'll talk.
And we're going to tie in, you've just rehabbed back from an injury and you're ready to get back into that work phase. And, one of the things I always start with, because people ask this question a lot, is, all right, what do I need to do to get him back into shape? And I always answer that question with a question. Usually my first one is what's the goal?
Yeah, well, the short answer to that is there's no one-size-fits-all program for every horse and every rider. The long answer is there's so many factors that go into it, like your skill level, the horse's skill level, what's your end goal, where are y'all trying to get? How out of shape are you both?
Right. Good point about both of you, because the more in shape you are, the easier it is to get these horses back in shape as well. But that end goal is important, because if you tell me like I'm looking for a second level dressage horse, that's going to be different than getting a horse in shape to go do the Pre-St. George or the Grand Prix. If you're saying, okay, I need to get him back, he's a 2-foot horse, well, that's a whole different program than a 1.60 m. And same thing, like when you look into like rodeo horses and barrel horses, it's like, well, okay, well, how fast does he typically run? All these questions play into what you need to do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a few of these things. So why is it important to get a horse fit and get a horse in shape? What are the things we're looking to do?
Number one, most important reason is to prevent injury to yourself and your horse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, that's the most important reason, to not overextend your horse, overexert, the heart, the lungs, and the musculoskeletal system. That's the number one reason, I would say.
We were talking about this, we were deciding, we're kind of going through this podcast, what we talk about. You brought up the couch to the 5K. And I think you made a great point. If you wake up one Monday and you're like, you know what, I'm going to run a 5K.
You could do it one day. You won't be doing it the next day. And you certainly won't be doing it 3 days anymore. Yes.
And, I remember I had this crazy idea that I was going to run a marathon back when I was running a lot. And I remember that led me in this deep dive. And it was interesting. I think the most important thing I was reading and talking to people that had done this was you need to have a plan. You don't just go run.
Always a plan. Always a plan. I mean, I made out a plan for myself when I was training for half marathon, couch to half marathon. It takes you 3, 4, 6 months, depending on what your starting point is. Or some people, it takes them a whole year to train for something like that. Just totally depends on the person.
Right.
Same thing with you and your horse.
And the main structures we've got to focus on when we're getting these horses back in shape. Everybody always thinks about the obvious, right? I got to get this muscle stronger. And everybody's always
so
about
much
muscle.
more that goes into it, though.
To me, that's probably the easiest part.
So easy, because horses put on muscle like that.
Yes, they're natural athletes. They maintain a lot of muscle. And the muscle is probably the bottom of my list. I was like, if we take care of the other things, the muscle will be there.
But you want to look at, more importantly than the muscle, is all your supporting structures, tendons and ligaments and all your fascia and even deeper than that, your heart and your lungs, your cardiovascular system. So.
And the great thing is, like, the cardiovascular, so muscle's the easiest thing to get conditioned. I'd say cardiovascular is the next easiest.
Yeah.
And so I typically focus on that cardiovascular and respiratory first. Like, you've got to build that up. Tendons and ligaments, a lot of people don't think about tendons and ligaments having to get stronger.
Well, they're all the supporting structures.
Exactly. You've got all those insertion points. If you go in and you look at where that ligament is, it inserts into bone. If you look at where that tendon is, it's got to insert into a bone. Well, that insertion point has to get stronger. This is what I always think about is, you remember, like, when you go out there and you do a whole bunch of work, like, you're not used to splitting firewood, or you're not used to mucking stalls, and you go out and do it, and you wake up the next morning and you're like, well, my legs hurt, or my joints hurt. Your mama always saying, unless your joints hurt. Your grandma saying, unless your joints hurt. And it's not actually your joints that are hurting, it's those tendons and ligaments insert around those joints. And you've actually experienced what's called enthesiopathy. That bone is actually sore where they attach. Mm-hmm. And you have to build that strength over time. And I think that's important for these horses, is you have to build that strength there.
Yeah.
That bone's got to be stronger, and nothing's fast with bone.
No, never.
I mean, this is chronic and repetitive. And so it's that slow work, repetitive, and on a schedule, I think, is the key to getting those insertion points where they need to be. Mm-hmm. So as we kind of go through and we talk about some of these exercises, the big things we're focusing on are those insertion points. The muscle's going to take care of itself. You got good nutrition. You're doing the work to get those tendons and ligaments and those insertion points in straight. The muscle will take care of itself.
Yeah. The
cardiovascular system, it'll take care of itself. People don't think about the airway, but you talk to thoroughbred people, and they say these horses have to get their air, or have to get their wind, and that's where that upper airway gets in shape, where it can open up enough to move that air in and out.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things that actually took probably the longest when I was training to run. It's like to actually get to a place where you are not like completely winded by the end of the run, and then you hit this like cruising altitude, and then you're good to go. And then you can run 6, 8, 10, 12 miles, once you get to that point.
Because I remember getting to that point, so that first mile was probably the toughest, every day. But once I got over that first mile, I could hit a pace and I could literally run forever.
Yeah.
It was not difficult.
Yeah.
So, and for those of you that know me, that was a long time ago. So not now. So let's talk about, what are some things, like, what are the questions that you like to ask when you're talking to owners? They're like, all right, my horse has had time off. What are the questions that you like to ask?
So when developing let's call it a get back in shape program, so one of the things I like to ask is, what's your end goal? And like, what is the level of work you'd like your horse to be in? And like, what's your time frame? How much time do you have? Because obviously the more time, the better. You don't want to rush anything. I don't like to do anything less than 6 weeks. I would say that's the minimum amount of time to give yourself to get a horse back in shape, because that would even be pushing it in my mind. And how old is the horse? Does it have any chronic injuries that you know of? Mm-hmm. Does it have any metabolic issues? Because like Cushing's or chronic laminitis, that could be factoring in as well. That might slow you down. Do you exercise outside of riding? Because that is going to help as well. What's your feeding program like?
Mm-hmm. One of the ones I think about a lot is, what is your schedule like?
Oh, yeah, of course. How much time do you have to devote to this?
Right.
Is anybody going to be helping you do this?
Yes.
Is it a one-man show, or are you going to have like a friend helping you? Are y'all going to tag team this? Or are you paying somebody to do some jump rides? Or you have a trainer that's helping you? Because maybe they're only riding 2 days a week, but their trainer's riding another 3 days a week. So now you're getting in 5 rides a week. So that is going to speed things up significantly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's consistency.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to what we're talking about with that plan, and having that plan so that you can be consistent.
Yeah. And I'd say it's also really important to mention right here, the plan should not involve riding 6 or 7 days a week.
No.
That is counterproductive.
Yes. Rest days are important.
100%.
Rest days.
Rest days are just as important as the workout days,
yes,
if not more important, because, I mean, there are countless studies out there that prove that rest days are just as important.
Because I think one of the things we forget is every time we exercise one of these horses, you're going to have some damage. That's how the body gets stronger. You can't get stronger without some damage. You want controlled damage, but you need some inflammation at these spots, some injury at these spots in order for the body to get stronger. But if you don't give them those rest days, they don't have time to heal that. And so those rest days are, like I said, they've got to be figured into that schedule. And I think you've got to plan that accordingly so that you've got those days where you're training, and then you've got to rest.
Yep, and I also recommend spreading them out.
Yes.
Like not 5 days in a row, 2 days off.
Right.
5 days in a row, 2 days off. It's more beneficial to spread out the 2 days off, or potentially even 3 days off, to spread them out more equally throughout the week.
Well, and I think at first you need a few more of those rest days.
And then until you get more fitness.
Right.
And then incorporating more fitness days throughout.
And one of the others I think about too is those light days. Like I remember when I was training for that marathon, it wasn't, you didn't go marathon speed or marathon distance every day. You had short days, you had longer days, you had the big day, and your actual time spent running a long distance was actually, that might only be every other week.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I never actually even ran 13 miles until race day.
Right.
The longest I ever trained was 10 miles. Mm-hmm. But if you can run 10 miles, 13 miles is nothing.
Right.
So I would routinely train 9 and 10 miles. You can run 16 miles, no problem. Mm-hmm. But it's just because it's just one day. But what you do, like to train your gymnastics, which is what a lot of these top riders do with their horses, like for your Grand Prix horse or your meter 60 horse, you are not out there every single day riding Grand Prix movements every single day, and you're not out there jumping 1.60 m every single day, like, you're going to jump the legs off of your horse.
Right.
You're going to way overextend your horse. What you're doing instead is you're doing gymnastics every day. You're building body strength, correctness of movements. You are literally just building up your horse's fitness every single day, and then you may go jump 1.60 m once every 2 weeks.
Right.
At the show.
Right.
Like, what you're doing, what you're focusing on at home is fitness. And and then you go to the show and let the horse's talent speak for itself.
Right, because I think that's really important, is how you set that up. Because like I said, there comes a certain point where if you can jump this high or you can do these movements, you're good.
Yes.
You don't have to do that every single day. You know, we always say you don't have to be Grand Prix every day.
No, if you run 13 miles every single day, you're just putting a lot of extra miles on yourself that is not really necessary. Unless you're training for a full marathon. Right. Which is different. But that you have a different end goal.
Correct.
So.
Well, and even then, you talk about these big marathoners. I can remember I never actually finished the marathon. I did one at practice, but I never actually ran in one. But I can remember that was a one-time kind of deal. Like, it was not you didn't go out every 2 weeks and go, oh, let me go run the 26 miles. Like, it was, and I think there was a lot of days building up to that, and there's a lot of training leading up to it. And it's the same thing with these horses is you've got to, a good way to look at it is like if you have an endurance horse. Yeah. You don't go practice a 100-mile race. You don't even practice a 50-mile race. No. That's race day. Right. So, and even if you look at a lot of the thoroughbreds, they're not going a race mile every week. You know, they're not running a race every week. That's an on an occasion thing. You're doing the things to build up to that, but you're not going full speed. Right. You train the building blocks, and you train the gymnastics of it. Yeah. And you focus on fitness. So, things that basically at home, what most people would do is you do like 2 hard days of training and then a day off, or, you know, like if you're in the very, very beginning of getting back into it, you would do 2 light days of work and then a day off, and then 2 light days of work and then a day off. And also, I think it's important to not always be in the arena. Yes. I think focusing on training on different terrains is also really important for building up strength of your tendons and ligaments. I think that's really important, because always riding in the same footing, I think, is where a lot of people go wrong, and that's where you get a lot of soft tissue injuries. Riding out in a field, taking your horse out on a trail ride, I think those things are really important. Not only for their brain. I mean, going in circles in an arena gets really boring for your horse. Well, and I think it's important because you talk about proprioception, which is how your body knows where it is in space, and that's how you can close your eyes and touch your nose. That on uneven footing helps to build that and gives you finer neuromotor control of those structures. You're also building a lot of those stabilizers, some of those collateral ligaments, because if you're just in perfectly prepared footing all the time, your collateral ligaments rarely have as much strain on them as if you're in more of that uneven footing. We may slow the speed down, you know, when we're on uneven ground. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, if you're on more uneven ground, it would be wise to slow things down a little bit. But still go through that process. Yeah. You know, the other thing I think about a lot is if you look at building strength in the gym and lifting weights, you've got options, right? You've got the machines, which have everything stable for you. Then you've got like a barbell, which is still more stable because you don't have as much movement. And then you've got the dumbbell where each arm has a weight. Well, if you want to just see how much you can always lift more on that machine than you can. Like, you can always lift more on a machine than you can on a barbell. And you can always lift more on a barbell than you can a dumbbell, because you have to use your stabilizers. And if you really, like, when you dig into that, those dumbbells really help build overall strength, not just, oh, look at me, I can bench press 400 pounds. Right. Great, you picked up 400 pounds on a machine, but are you strong? and that's why you look at a lot of body weight exercises. Some of those can actually build strength as good, if not better, than weights, because you're having to use all the structures involved, not just one or two.
Right.
So I think that's the equivalent of that uneven ground.
Yeah.
And I think that is really, really important. And I know some people get nervous, like, I can't take my dressage horse out on that uneven, not perfectly paired footing. It might get hurt.
Oh, it's not true at all.
Not true at all.
Yeah. No.
I mean, you want to be smart. Like, maybe doing a piaffe on a trail ride is not the greatest of ideas, but definitely getting them out and moving is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We, when I was growing up, that my trainer she would say, you're only allowed to have 2 days in the arena. All the other days you have to take your horse out and it's, go ride in the field or go on a trail ride or something. It's just better for your horse's brain overall and better for their body, better for you. So I don't think people do that quite enough.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. So I think the type of, where you're working and varying up those footing types is really important for building that overall strength and that overall fitness. And like I said, not just that, but the mental. If you do the same thing every day, you're going to get tired doing the same thing every day.
Right.
So I think all those things kind of couple in to help produce where we want to be.
Also, I would say, in the beginning, when you're first getting your horse back into work, the length of time of each workout individually, I would say, as a general rule of thumb, I wouldn't, for maybe the first 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, if you're getting back into shape, maybe not doing more than 3 to 4 workouts in a week, and maybe the length of time not being longer than 20 to 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at the most if you include all the walks and stuff, because walking and a very, very long walking warm-up and a walk cool-down is really important too, to warm everything up and cool everything down. Always remember you don't want to untack and hose off a hot horse. So, but yeah, just you don't want to get your horse straight out of the pasture from not having ridden for months and months and go out and exercise your horse for 45 minutes to an hour and say, okay, yep, first workout of the season done. I feel like that's a bit much. So take it a little bit easy. Make your goal, your first couple of workouts, aiming for that 20 to 30 minute category, and make sure that you do lots of walking before and after your exercise.
Well, what I think about is, there's really only 2 things that change. And that's the intensity of the ride and duration of the ride.
Right.
Those are your 2 variables.
Just like every workout.
Yeah, those are your 2 variables.
Yeah.
So you got to think about that when you're first starting. Keep the intensity low and keep the duration low. And I like to increase duration first, because if we increase duration, that's getting our cardiovascular health up.
Getting your endurance up.
Yes.
Basically, yeah.
And then we start increasing that intensity.
Right.
And so, and the other thing I think is important is, like you said, the warm up and the cool down, that should be done with purpose.
Yeah, not just lollygagging on the buckle, you're on your phone.
Right.
The horse is just kind of zigzagging around, grazing here and there. You should be doing a walking warm-up, marching.
Yes.
A marching walk.
With purpose.
Yes.
And work on things, as you're doing that, work on getting bends, work on stretching,
yes.
Work on things to, like I said, with purpose. Start working on some of those mechanics. If you're a dressage horse, you can work on lateral work at the walk.
And I know a lot of people that actually they do their walking warm-up as a little trail ride.
Yeah.
They'll do, and that kind of gets in some of what Dan was talking about, your proprioceptive training, going on different terrains, strengthening up your collateral ligaments and stuff. Go for a brief little walk-in trail ride, quick, and then go do your arena workout, and then go do your cool down on a little trail ride.
And again, that cool down's done with purpose.
Yeah, marching.
Yes.
We're not lollygagging.
So I remember, so my son, he's a pitcher, right? And a few years ago, he pitched his first big middle school game. He was 6th grade. He was all excited. He pitched his first middle school game, and the coach was like, hey, you need to ice your arm. And I was like, I don't know about that. And so actually, luckily I was able to pick up the phone and call somebody who lives professionally in this world, and they're like, no, we don't ice anymore. because that actually, when you ice, it actually restricts circulation.
Yeah.
And you restrict the natural growth factors that help heal that. He's like, you warm that arm up, you need to cool that arm down, and they use a lot of J-bands. One of the things I had to do is do a lot of sprints, and I was trying to figure the whole sprint thing out, and it kind of made sense. If you're going to run fast, all of a sudden you got to pump your arm. Well, that's helping loosen up that shoulder again. And then working the J-bands, like he has a whole routine after he gets done pitching. Like we'll be in the car driving home, and he's going through his workout. You know, he's got his J-band set up in the truck, and we're driving home, and he's going through his J-band exercises, and he's cooling that arm back down. And so I think
That's pretty cool.
I think about that with horses, right? Again, that cool down's not a, on the buckle, lollygag, checking your voicemail. It should be done with purpose. The same way you warmed up, you ought to cool down in reverse. And I think that's really important for having the circulation in those areas, getting those growth factors into those areas so the body can start repairing any damage that was done during the ride. And again, when we say damage, we don't mean like you broke something. It's just normal physiologic stress to the area that needs to be healed.
Yeah. And I was always taught, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was always taught when you walk and cool down, you want to do a bare minimum of a 10-minute walk warming up and a 10-minute walk cooling down. But I usually kind of stretch it. I usually tell clients at least 15 minutes because I know if I tell them 15 minutes, they're not going to do quite 15 usually.
I think that's a bare minimum.
Yeah, I agree. If you have more time, it's not going to hurt anything, honestly.
What I try to say is you should spend as much time warming up as you do actually working,
and
as much time cooling down as you did working.
Yeah.
They should be pretty even. So if you're doing a 30 or 45 minute training ride, you should have 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after. Like you need to slowly work up and slowly work down.
Yeah.
It's not just come in cold. Because if you even think about us, right? We get done with a whole bunch of work and we go plop down on the couch. I'm sore the next day.
Oh, yeah.
But what I have noticed as I'm getting older, because matters, if I slowly increase my intensity, like if I slowly increase my work with the chainsaw, and I slowly decrease my work with that chainsaw, I feel better the next day. I'm still a little sore because unfortunately,
also throw in some Advil.
Yeah, a few Advil, Metacam, that does help. And and that's something else to think about too when we're bringing these horses back to work. Maybe a little, talk to your veterinarian, but a little anti-inflammatory can help out in this process. If you notice like he's working, but he's starting to get a little bit sore, well, maybe we need to back down a little bit. And maybe we do need a few days rest with some anti-inflammatories, no different than us.
Yeah.
That should not take the medication should not take the place of proper conditioning.
Right.
And if your horse is sore to the point where it needs an anti-inflammatory, we need to go back and relook at our program and say, what do we need to change?
Maybe we did too much too fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Because every horse is an individual.
Yes.
Every horse is individual. So doing those things with purpose, I think, is important.
I think also all of these general rules of thumb that we're talking about here get even more complicated if you throw in either a chronic injury or an acute injury. Chronic injuries are very, very difficult as well because they throw in a whole monkey wrench. Chronic injuries are, as soon as you feel like you're getting to a good place, they'll flare up and get sore again. So then you got to back down and slowly work your way back up. And then they get sore again. And you got to, I hate it for owners sometimes. And I see that happening. I'm like, oh, because I had a couple of horses that had chronic injuries. I feel for them.
Yeah. And I think that comes into where it's important to build that team, right?
Yeah.
That team, one of the things I like to always say is Tiger Woods. He's got a golf coach. He's got a physical therapist, and I don't think anybody argue. I think Tiger Woods knows how to play golf, but he's still got coaches. He still has people looking at him to keep him at that level. And so I think having a veterinarian that's very familiar with sports medicine, very familiar with these types of injuries, very familiar with rehab processes, having trainers that are very, very knowledgeable. Having those people on your team, because you start looking at these sports teams and they have all these people. They have more people. You may have 18, 20 guys on the team. You've got 40 keeping them going.
Yeah, that is true. They have like 2 guys. They have 2 guys on a team for every player. Yeah,
like when they introduce the Braves team, if you're at the game, like, oh, so-and-so athletic trainer, so-and-so athletic trainer, so-and-so orthopedist, so-and-so this. And I think it's important to have those people on your team and to get those people involved. Be honest with them, like on the chronic injuries. Like if we've had something in the past, tell them they're there.
Yep.
And so we can work with you to help design that get back to work plan, that how we're going to do this. And then don't be afraid to have regular checkups as you're getting these horses back and performing, because we may see something like, hey, because we don't see your horse every day, and that's actually a value, is we don't see your horse every day. We're going to pick up those changes that may be subtly happening. We're going to pick up those changes and be like, hey, we need to back down a little bit. All right, we've been doing really good, going really great, nice incline. We're starting to pause. We're starting to get a little bit sore. Let's back down a little bit before we actually have an injury. And maybe we need to slow it down for a week.
Yeah.
And then we slow it down for a week, and then we're able to keep going, keep that climb up. And so I think having those regular checkups with your veterinarian is important when you're doing these things.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean like you're going to come in and we're going to look at your horse and like, oh, we got to treat this, we got to do this, we got to treat this. It may be like, no, you're on a good plane, keep going. Mm-hmm. Or maybe, hey, you're starting to get a little sore. Let's take an easy week. All right, we need a walk week. Mm-hmm. We're going to focus. We're going to decrease this intensity, and then continue on.
Yeah.
So build that good team of people that can help you move through this process.
It's all teamwork.
It makes the dream work. Dad joke of the day.
Oh my gosh.
So, having that plan, and one of the things we don't talk about a lot is nutrition.
Well, yeah. I mean, how can you possibly become a bodybuilder if you're not eating?
Well, we think about that with ourselves all the time, but sometimes we don't think about the nutrient demands of getting an athlete back into shape, and that goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
It could be we need to increase nutrient intake, or maybe like, hey, we need, until we get some weight off. We've had all winter sitting around. I mean, I get it. I'm there. We've had all winter sitting around.
Yeah.
Maybe we got to focus on dropping a few lbs before we start doing intense work, or maybe as we're increasing, we got to increase our plan of nutrition.
Yeah, both of those are difficult. The chunky monkeys that are coming back into work, which I feel like, for me, those are like slightly easier, I think, versus I feel like I see it unfortunately way too often, is the skinny horses that people are riding, and they're trying to bring them back into work, and they're too thin.
One of the things I see is a lot of these horses will look great. Their ideal body condition, their muscle looks good. We start increasing that workload, and all of a sudden we start losing condition, we're losing muscle. Mm-hmm. Because if you're trying to build muscle, or you're trying to maintain muscle, if you don't have the right supply of protein, or better yet, really it's amino acids, you're not going to continue to build. You're actually going to start to lose muscle.
Because they looked good at maintenance.
Right.
But now we're expending more calories than maintenance, so those calories got to come from somewhere.
Right. So
we're dropping weight now because we didn't increase our calories with the demand of work.
That we got to increase those calories, we got to increase those carbohydrates, increase that protein. All those things fall into place, and quality nutrition.
Huge factor.
Quality nutrition.
That can't be spoken enough about. Quality.
Quality
over quantity any day of the week.
You can't be an athlete living on Slim Jims and taquitos unless you're John Daly, and then I think you can make it on Miller Lite and Marlboros. But you've got to have quality nutrition.
Your horse. What a lot of people don't understand is your horse is never going to look as good as you want it to when you're feeding the lowest quality of hay and the lowest quality of feed you can get your hands on.
Right.
Your horse is never going to look the way you want it to.
And there's a lot of great resources. Veterinarians are one of them. But also, most of these major feed companies, most of them have nutritionists on staff. You can reach out to them, and they are more than happy to help you. That's their job. They want to help you. And so I think having that quality nutrition is just as important for these horses as it is for human athletes. And if you're riding your horse, like we keep calling them, I call them athletes because really any horse that's ridden is an athlete.
Sure.
But there's different levels of athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, you got pro bass fishermen, they're athletes.
Yeah.
And then you got NFL players, and they're athletes. Depends on what kind of athletes you are.
Yeah.
And so even if you've got a trail horse, even if you're just the weekend warrior out there riding, you still have to have good nutrition on board. Like your horse is still performing and still being an athlete. Have that quality nutrition. Talk to your veterinarian, and if they don't understand, if they're not sure what to do, if they don't know the best route, they'll get you in touch with somebody that can.
Yeah.
They can get you the help. They've got the resources. So, and then that kind of brings up another topic. And I'm not saying anything bad about this group of individuals, but it's something that, obviously, what was that thing, Know Thyself?
Yes.
The weekend warrior.
Yes.
I love the
We know a good many.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with being the weekend warrior. But having
I
those,
am one of them.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of those. It's having those expectations if you are a weekend warrior. If you're only riding Saturday and Sunday, you have to manage expectations as far as what your horse is going to be able to do.
Right, because you're not getting those weekday workout gymnastics classes, you know. So your horse's level of fitness is not going to be as good. It's not going to reach its full potential. But if, you know, if you're good with that,
Yeah.
you know, maybe you just go on a trail ride on the weekend. But we do, unfortunately, see a lot of injuries associated with weekend warrior horses because of that.
And they get pushed too hard on the weekend without doing the work during the week. And it's probably not the best example, but when I use that, I love to fish. I love to fish. I don't have time to fish as much as I used to. So, but used to, I could go and I knew the trout streams, and I knew I could go catch fish all the time because I knew the rivers. I don't fish enough to know the rivers. I'm a weekend warrior fly fisherman now. I hire guides.
Yeah.
Because I don't have time to go figure it out. So I've had to accept, like, okay, well, the reason I don't have time is I have a job now.
Yes.
So if I want to go enjoy my weekend fishing, I'm going to have to pay somebody to take me fishing.
Right.
And so one of the things that I talk to people about is, like, if you want more than the weekend warrior horse, you're going to have to find other ways to keep that horse conditioned during the week.
I used to make great money in high school exercising horses for those women who were weekend warriors.
Absolutely.
Because I had all the time in the world after school. I would ride multiple horses each day after school, and I made really good money doing that for those women. And they would come on the weekend, load their horse up on the trailer, and go do their thing. But I made money during the week riding them for them, keeping them in shape. So it was like a win-win situation.
Well, you think about the opportunity that provides for a high school kid that may not be able to afford that quality of a horse, or may not have the opportunity to own a
so
horse.
much fun, because they were really nice horses.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And I got to ride all kinds of different horses.
Right.
Because it was just these horses that were at my boarding facility, which I boarded at a place where it was just all kinds of random horses. It wasn't like a trainer-based barn. It was just like a one-size-fits-all kind of barn. But there was a lot of really nice horses there. It was a really boutique kind of barn. So yeah, I got to ride a lot of different, really nice horses, and I made money doing it. It was awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the horse benefits.
Yeah.
You know, because you're keeping this horse in shape. And so people, you know, and like I said, we're not saying anything bad about the weekend warriors. But you're going to need to plan ahead, and you think about just having somebody that can help keep that horse fit, whether that's a trainer, that's a kid in the barn, you know, somebody that can keep that horse fit for you during the weeks. On the weekends, you're not worried about fitness. You can go enjoy it.
Yeah,
and you
have
can
no downsides to it.
Yeah, and then you're reducing your risk of injury, because that is where we see a lot of
injuries on those horses. Yep.
So
they always call us on Monday.
Yes. Life was good till Sunday.
Yep. Yep.
So having that plan and being prepared, and like I said, utilizing some of these resources, like you're gonna have to make some decisions in here.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, there's a lot of things I'm a weekend warrior at anymore, and I really had to change my mindset on how I can do them, because my wife's always yelling at me. It's like, Dan, you just don't have the time. And I'm like, I know, but I can do it. I was like, you can. but you don't have the time. So I've had to accept that in a few places. Like it was tough to go hire a fishing guide the first time. It's like, I know how to catch fish, but I don't know the rivers. I don't have the time. I may only get a few weekends a year out on the river. Well, if I'm going to enjoy them, let me go get the guide that stays out there every day.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're going to enjoy your horse and you don't have time to keep them fit, you need to come up with a plan to keep them fit.
Yeah. I mean, because you're going to lose a lot more time being down with a soft tissue injury.
Right. And that is the most common injury we see with horses not being properly conditioned and not being fit, are these soft tissue injuries.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and unfortunately, those are the ones that also take the longest to heal.
Yep.
So
6, 9, 12 months.
Yes.
Sometimes they never come down.
Yes. So, know thyself.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with being that individual, because Lord knows everybody, like both of us sitting at this table, the things that used to be, we used to do almost every day or we were doing every week. We just, unfortunately, this whole job thing gets in the way, and
life gets busy. That's
life
what they
gets
say.
busy.
But basically, to, sum it up, be realistic when you're formulating a plan for you and your horse getting back in shape. You want to make sure that you're giving ample time. You do not want to say, oh, I have a show in 2 weeks. Oh, I haven't conditioned my horse at all.
I think that's a really good point. If you know you want to go out and you want to show in April.
I just got asked that yesterday. I have a show coming up in 3 weeks, but I haven't ridden my horse yet since last fall. How many classes can I enter in? I said,
0.
none. and I was just kind of very confused.
Yeah.
But that is seriously something I get asked all the time. And I'm like, that is 3 weeks away from now.
Yeah.
I'll see you in 4 weeks for a soft tissue injury.
Right. So.
But maybe not if you get lucky. But that's the thing. You're just getting lucky. You get lucky until you don't.
Right. And I promise you're not going to keep getting lucky.
Yeah.
And so I think.
And also, it's just not really fair to your horse. I mean, that's just not really fair, is it? But regardless, give yourself plenty of time. You don't want to feel rushed. You want to be out there doing your best and feel like you are showing the best side of yourself and your horse's best side of himself, herself. You don't want to be the guy that shows up completely unprepared, frazzled.
Yeah.
You want to feel like you have your stuff together.
Yes. And like I said, that starts with that plan. So if you want to show in April, my rule of thumb is like, if you want to start showing in April, unfortunately, you're going to start planning in January.
Oh, yes.
January is when we got to start getting this plan put together and start to execute on this.
Yes.
Now, if you don't like riding in the cold, then maybe you're not an April show person.
Maybe you're a summertime show gal.
Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Know thyself.
Yes.
I'm a summer gal. I hate winter. I hate cold. I know that about myself. So unless I board at a place with a covered arena or a closed-in arena, I will not be out there in January.
Yeah, it starts getting cold. I don't fish anymore. I mean, straight up, like I love fishing, but I don't like being cold.
I'm not a diehard.
No, not there. Just who I am.
Nope.
I mean, that's just it. So, like I said, have realistic expectations. You know, if you don't like riding in the cold, maybe April's not your month to start showing. Or if you are going to show in April,
you pay somebody to show you.
You have to hire somebody to get this done for you, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
So
no shame.
Yeah, use your resources.
Yeah.
Use your resources. So
there's plenty of young people out there that need a buck, need $1.
Yes.
And they probably love to exercise your horse for you and use it as a chance to learn a little something and ride a nice horse, because I know it sure helped me in life. So.
And communicate your plan to them. Like when you hire them, like, hey, get my horse fit. You're hiring a teenager. Give them some guidelines here.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah, I was a good rider. So maybe not just any old rider, but oh yeah. And we definitely talked about what I was supposed to be doing with them.
Right.
Yeah. I wasn't just giving free will.
You weren't just like, hey, go ride this Grand Prix horse and get him ready.
Go do all the things. No, I was given instructions on what to do, for sure. There was guidelines.
Well, that plays in too. Like, depending on where you're trying to go is where you want to find these resources. Like, if you want a Grand Prix horse, maybe the 16-year-old kid isn't who you need. Maybe you need to go find a professional.
Yeah.
You need a training barn, you need a professional. I had that conversation once with someone who always had their horses at home and was always, able to, ship in, train, and do a lot of work themselves. And they're really falling behind. I was like, congratulations, welcome to adulthood. You have a job, you have kids. You may want to look at a professional boarding facility, and
where you can get some pro rides and
yeah. And it was interesting. She told me later. She's like, I really fought that at first, but after I did it, I was much happier. Like I could show up, I could enjoy my horse again. I wasn't worried about all these details. And she's like, it was a tough pill to swallow, but once I did, it was fantastic. So,
well, that's good.
So yeah, I think to summarize it up, a lot of people want specifics on, all right, my horse is here and I need to get here. But we don't really have those because there's so many variables that go into this. But I think some great points is, like you were saying, have a plan. Have a plan. Know where you're starting.
Give yourself a couple of months. Give yourself a couple of rest days a week. Spread them out. 2 days of working out, 1 day off. 2 days of working out, 1 day off. General guideline.
Move it up to 3 eventually.
Right.
Pay attention to that duration and the intensity.
Yep. Don't start your workouts at an hour a piece. Start them closer to 20 minutes.
Have a plan. Do it on purpose. Everything has a purpose. Get some professionals on your team that can help you. Like I said, professional athletes have trainers and coaches.
Yeah.
So have those people on your team.
If you have specific questions about you developing an actual plan for you and your horse, I'm sure your vet would be more than happy to sit down and go through all these questions with you specifically. But we they can help you actually formulate a plan that's specific for you and your horse. But if you're just one of those people that's at home and you want to try to formulate your own plan, we hope that these guidelines were helpful to you. And if you guys have any questions, please leave your comments and questions. And
we'll do our best to answer them. But have your team.
Yes.
Get that team involved, and people that are knowledgeable about the subject. If I always say that too, because if you ask me how to get your dog in shape, I'm not your guy. That's not. Yes, I'm a veterinarian, but that ain't my job. I don't know how to do that, but I can get your horse there.
I guess the same way. I don't know.
So, get people on your team that really know what they're doing and can really guide you along with that. And like I said, don't discount professional trainers. These people have a lot of experience with this as well. So, hopefully that answers a lot of the questions y'all had. I know it wasn't clear cut. A lot of people are looking for that perfect formula on how to do this.
There is none.
And I always my favorite phrase in life is well, it depends. There's a lot of questions that have to get answered. This isn't a one-size-fits-all. We just want to kind of give you some rough guidelines, things you need to think about so that you can build that plan, or you can go find those individuals to help you build that plan. So, well, thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for listening. Zoe, thank you for being here today. Thanks to April for getting this recorded. Casey, big shout out for all the editing. I just found out how long it takes to edit one of these, and it's a lot.
It takes a minute.
Yes. So thank you everybody who put these on, but most of all, thank you to the listeners that tune in. Like I said, it's really cool to know people out there listening. And if y'all got more ideas for podcasts, keep sending them in. Y'all are doing great on that. We're trying to get to them all. Like I said, the podcast for us is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we're going to get them covered. Y'all just keep listening. We're going to keep pushing these out. We really enjoy it. You got those questions, email us, call us, send us letters, carrier pigeons, DMs. What else do we have? Can they snap us? I don't think they can snap us. I don't even know what that is.
I get a lot of clients that talk to me about it at appointments.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh my God, y'all's podcast is so much fun. Y'all should talk about X, Y, and Z. And
it's a lot of fun for us too, so we really appreciate having this opportunity.
I still always get people asking me, we want Billy back.
I know.
Always. And I'm like,
funny.
Don't you like any of us?
I know. The hard part about getting Billy back is he's out riding somewhere. Him and Lee are riding everywhere.
He's always having a good time.
I love it. He earned it. He deserved it. 30 years. He deserves to go enjoy life. So
yeah, he does.
But thank y'all for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks.
Thank you.